Imagine you are a general in ancient Persia. Your army is marching on a distant frontier. You need to send an order, retreat, advance, or hold, and it must arrive before the enemy strikes. How do you do it? Today we take instant communication for granted, but for most of human history, sending a message meant overcoming distance, terrain, and time. And yet, ancient civilizations developed systems that were surprisingly fast, reliable, and clever. This is the story of how people. One of the earliest solutions was the relay system. Riders on horseback would gallop from one station to the next, handing off messages like a baton in a race. The Persian Empire perfected this with their Angarium, a network of way stations stocked with fresh horses and riders. A message could travel from Susa to Sardis, nearly 2,700 kilometers in just 7 days. That's about 400 kilometers per day, faster than any army could march. But horses weren't the only option. In China, during the Zhou dynasty, they used smoke signals from watchtowers along the Great Wall. A single puff meant all clear, 2 puffs meant danger approaching, and 3 puffs meant enemy sighted. This system could relay a warning across hundreds of kilometers in a matter of hours. The key was a standardized code. Everyone knew what the signals meant. Then there were the Incas, who had no horses or written language. Instead, they used a system of runners called chasquis, who ran along a network of roads spanning over 40,000 kilometers. They carried messages in the form of quippus knotted cords that encoded numbers and information. A chasqui could cover 240 kilometers in a day, running at high altitude in the Andes. They were so reliable that the Inca emperor could receive fresh fish from the coast in just 2 days. Falling, this system of shouting stations was known as the vocal telegraph. It was simple, fast, and required no technology. But it had one major flaw: the message could be garbled as it passed from person to person. A single misheard word could change the entire meaning. Despite this, the vocal telegraph remained in use for centuries, especially in mountainous regions where line-of-sight communication was possible. But the human voice had its limits. For longer distances, ancient civilizations turned to fire. The most famous example is the beacon chain used by the Greeks to announce the fall of Troy. A series of hilltop bonfires, lit one after another, could carry a message across hundreds of miles in a single night. The only problem? You could only send one message. Something happened. There was no way to send more complex messages. The Greeks and Romans developed a system using torches. A torch raised meant yes or ready. A torch lowered meant no or not ready. By combining multiple torches on a single station, they could spell out letters or numbers. This was the first known attempt at a visual code, a primitive binary system using fire instead of electricity. But the most sophisticated communication network of the ancient world belonged to the Persians. The royal road stretched over 1,600 miles from Susa to Sardis. Along this road, the Persians built a relay system of mounted messengers. Riders would gallop at full speed from one station to the next, handing off a written message like a baton in a race. Herodotus wrote that neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of fall across the Aegean islands in a single night. But shouting had limits. For more complex messages, you needed a human courier, a runner. And some runners became legends. The most famous is Phidippides, who ran from Athens to Sparta in 490 BCE to ask for help against the Persians. That's about 140 miles in 2 days. He then ran back and later ran from Marathon to Athens to announce victory, a distance of about 26 miles. Fall across the Aegean islands in a single night. But shouting had limits. For more complex messages, you needed a human courier, a runner. And some runners became legends. The most famous is Phidippides, who ran from Athens to Sparta in 490 BCE to ask for help against the Persians. That's about 140 miles in 2 days. He then ran back and later ran from Marathon to Athens to announce victory, a distance of about 26 miles. Fall across the Aegean islands in a single night. But shouting had limits. For more complex messages, you needed a human courier, a runner. And some runners became legends. The most famous is Phidippides, who ran from Athens to Sparta in 490 BCE to ask for help against the Persians. That's about 140 miles in 2 days. He then ran back and later ran from Marathon to Athens to announce victory, a distance of about 26 miles. Fall across the Aegean islands in a single night. But shouting had limits. For more complex messages, you needed a human courier, a runner. And some runners became legends. The most famous is Phidippides, who ran from Athens to Sparta in 490 BCE to ask for help against the Persians. That's about 140 miles in 2 days. He then ran back and later ran from Marathon to Athens to announce victory, a distance of about 26 miles. After delivering the message, but most runners were not heroes of legend. They were ordinary people, slaves, soldiers, or paid messengers who carried letters, news, and orders across the ancient world. In the Inca Empire, runners called chasquis formed a relay network that covered over 15,000 miles of roads. They carried quipus knotted cords that encoded information and could deliver a message from Cusco to Quito, a distance of over 1,000 miles in about 5 days. The chasquis ran in pairs, one carrying the message while the other carried a trumpet and a staff. As they approached a station, the trumpet warned the next runner to prepare. The relay was seamless. The new runner would start running alongside the incoming one, receive the message, and then sprint ahead. This system allowed messages to travel at an estimated 150 miles per day, far faster than any single runner could manage. The chasquis were highly trained from a young age. They learned to run long distances at high altitudes, often in thin air and extreme weather. They memorized the road network and knew where every station was located. Their diet was simple, mostly maize and coca leaves, which helped them endure fatigue and hunger. The Inca state provided them with uniforms, sandals, and shelter, and in return they were expected. The chasqui system was not just for messages. It also carried small goods, such as fish from the coast, fresh fruit, or even live animals. The Inca emperor could enjoy fresh seafood from the Pacific Ocean over 200 miles away within 2 days. This network was a marvel of organization and endurance, and it held the vast Inca Empire together long before they worked in pairs, running alongside each other to exchange messages without stopping. They were trained from youth and had incredible endurance, but runners had limits. They could only carry what they could remember or what fit in a pouch. For longer, more complex messages, the ancients turned to fire. Fire is one of the oldest communication tools. A single flame can be seen from miles away, especially at night, and it travels at the speed of light, the fastest possible ancient world, but fire messages were limited. You could only send simple signals. A single flame meant danger, 2 flames meant victory. You couldn't send a detailed message. So civilizations developed more sophisticated systems. The Greeks used a system of torches to spell out letters. They assigned each letter of the alphabet a number and used pairs of torches to represent those numbers. It was slow, but it worked. A message could travel across the Aegean Sea in a matter of hours. But fire had a fatal flaw. It only worked at night. During the day, the flames were invisible, so the ancients needed a different solution. They turned to sound. Drums, horns, and conch shells could carry messages over long distances. In Africa, talking drums mimicked the tone and rhythm of spoken language. A skilled drummer could send a message from village to village in minutes. The sound traveled faster than any runner, but sound also had limits. It could be distorted by wind or drowned out by noise. So the search for a better communication method continued. The next breakthrough came from the Incas of South America. They developed a system called quipu, a set of knotted cords. Each knot, each color, each twist of the string could represent a number, a story, or a census record. Quipu carriers, called chasquis, ran along the royal roads, carrying these knotted messages. They could relay complex information without relying on memory or fire. The quipu was one of the most sophisticated data storage systems of the ancient world. The Publicus square was a 5x5 grid of letters. Each letter was identified by its row and column numbers. To send a message, you would signal the row number with torches on the left and the column number with torches on the right. This allowed the Greeks to spell out any message, not just prearranged. The system worked like this. A sender would look up the letter H in the grid. It was in row 2, column 3. So he would raise 2 torches on the left and 3 on the right. The receiver, watching from a distant hill, would count the torches and decode the message letter by letter. This method was a huge leap forward. It could transmit any message, from military orders to simple news, across long distances in minutes. The Publicus square remained in use for centuries, adapted by later civilizations for their own signaling needs. The Publicus square also found a second life in cryptography. By rearranging the grid or using a keyword, the same square could encode secret messages. It was a simple but effective cipher, used by prisoners and spies well into the Renaissance. Used a 5x5 grid of letters. Each letter was represented by two numbers, its row and column. Torches held on the left and right could signal these numbers. This allowed any message to be spelled out letter by letter using fire. This system was used by the Roman army for military communication, but it was slow. Each letter took time. For urgent messages, the Romans preferred a different method, the relay. The Persian Empire, under Darius I in the 6th century BCE, used a 5x5 grid of letters. Each letter was represented by two numbers, its row and column. Torches held on the left and right could signal these numbers. This allowed any message to be spelled out letter by letter using fire. This system was used by the Roman army for military communication, but it was slow. Each letter took time. For urgent messages, the Romans preferred a different method, the relay. The Persian Empire under Darius I in the 6th century BCE faced a huge challenge: how to control a territory stretching from India to Egypt, over 2,500 miles wide. Darius created the Angarium, a system of royal messengers and way stations along the royal road, which ran from Susa to Sardis, about 1,600 miles. The road had 111 stations, each with fresh horses and riders. A message could travel from Susa to Sardis in about 7 days, a journey that would take a normal traveler 90 days. The Greek historian Herodotus marveled at the speed of the Persian messengers, writing, "Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointment." Herodotus marveled at this system. He wrote, "Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor darkness prevents these couriers from completing their designated stages with utmost speed." This phrase later became the unofficial motto of the United States Postal Service. But the Persian system was not for everyone. It was a royal service used only for government business. Private messages had to be sent by hired couriers or travelers, and they were much slow. The Angarium was a state secret, literally. Interfering with the royal couriers was a serious crime. Anyone who harmed a messenger or stole a letter could face severe punishment, even death. The system was designed to be fast, reliable, and secure. Along the royal road, there were guard posts and fortified stations. The couriers carried official documents sealed with clay. Breaking the seal was a crime. The system relied on a chain of relay stations spaced about a day's ride apart. At each station, fresh horses and riders were ready. The courier would hand over the message to the next rider, who would immediately gallop to the next station. This way, the message traveled day and night without stopping. A journey that would take a normal traveler 90 days could be done in 7. The Persian courier system was a marvel of ancient logistics. It allowed the king to communicate with his satraps across the empire in a matter of days. It also served as an intelligence network. The couriers reported on the condition of roads, the loyalty of provinces, and any signs of rebellion. This system was so effective that later empires, including the Romans and the Mongols, adopted similar methods. A royal messenger was punishable by death. The Persian system was so effective that Alexander the Great adopted it after conquering the empire. He kept the roads and stations, using them to control his own vast territory. The Romans took the Persian idea and improved it. Their system, the Cursus Publicus, was a state-run postal and transport network that covered over 50,000 miles of roads. The Cursus Publicus had two branches: the Cursus Velox, fast post for urgent messages using horses and light carriages, and the Cursus Clabularis, slow post, for heavy goods and official travelers. The system was so efficient that a message could travel up to 50 miles per day, and the Roman army used it to coordinate troops across the empire. However, it was expensive and often abused by officials for personal travel. The Cursus Clabularis, or slow post, was designed for heavy goods. It used ox carts to transport bulk items like grain, building materials, and military supplies across the empire. These ox carts moved at a walking pace, covering about 10 to 15 miles per day, making them essential for logistics but not for speed. Along the roads, stations were placed every 10 to 15 miles. The mutations, or change stations, provided fresh horses for riders. The mansions, or inns, offered overnight accommodation for travelers. These stations were vital for maintaining the speed and efficiency of the Cursus Publicus. A message could travel up to 50 miles per day on foot, but with the Cursus Publicus, a rider could cover 100 to 150 miles per day. This was a dramatic improvement, allowing the empire to communicate across vast distances much faster than before. In emergencies, using multiple riders, a message could travel from Rome to the Rhine frontier, about 1,000 miles, in just a few days. This relay system, with fresh horses at each station, allowed the empire to respond quickly to threats and coordinate military campaigns across miles in under 10 days. The system was used for military orders, tax collection, and government correspondence, but it was expensive to maintain. Local communities had to provide horses, food, and lodging for the couriers. Abuse of the system was common. Officials used it for personal travel, and the cost burden led to complaints and even rebellions. The Emperor Hadrian tried to reform it, but the system remained a heavy tax on the provinces. Despite its flaws, the Cursus Publicus was a remarkable achievement in logistics and communication, connecting the vast Roman Empire like never before. The most advanced communication system in the ancient world. It allowed the Roman Empire to function as a coherent state for centuries. Land communication was one thing, but how did ancient navies communicate at sea? Ships couldn't stop at stations, and shouting didn't carry far over the waves. The Greeks and Romans used flags, signal fires, and even mirrors to send messages between ships. A polished bronze shield could reflect sunlight, creating a flash visible for miles. Using oars, a ship's rowers could beat the water in a specific rhythm, creating a sound that other ships could hear and recognize. Different rhythms meant different messages. Follow me, attack, or retreat. This was simple but effective, especially when visibility was poor. Another clever method was the use of signal flags. Each flag had a specific meaning, and a series of flags could convey a simple message. The Romans even had a system of colored flags, red for danger, white for peace, and so on. This allowed for quick communication without the need for sound, but perhaps the most impressive naval communication system was the hydraulic telegraph, invented by the Greek engineer Aeneas Tacticus in the 4th century BC. It used water levels in synchronized containers to send coded messages over long distances. Two identical containers, each with a floating rod marked with messages, were placed at two stations. When one station raised its rod, the other could see the same message appear. This was a true telegraph. The use of signal flags. Different colored flags or patterns could indicate different messages. Enemy sighted, need supplies, or change course. The Romans also used a system of torches on ships at night. The number and arrangement of torches could convey simple commands like attack or retreat, but these methods were limited. Complex messages had to be delivered by small, fast boats that rode between ships. This was slow and dangerous, especially in battle. The problem of naval communication was never fully solved in ancient times. Fleets relied on prearranged plans and the skill of individual commanders to coordinate. In antiquity, communication was a weak link. Many battles were lost because orders arrived too late or were misunderstood. Yet ancient people found remarkable ways to bridge distance. From the shouts of watchmen to the fires on mountaintops, from the runners of the Inca to the postal systems of Persia and Rome, ancient networks were not just clever but essential to the rise of civilizations. The Persians built a relay system of mounted messengers along the royal road, while the Romans constructed an extensive network of roads and stations to speed official correspondence across their empire. These ancient communication networks laid the groundwork for the connected world we live in today.